In the quiet of his Texas home, George Strait found himself surrounded by the remnants of a life steeped in music. The walls bore witness to decades of memories, framed photographs, gold records and awards, glimmering under the soft, golden light of the setting sun. Yet today, as he settled into his favorite armchair, the accolades felt heavy, like weights pressing down on his spirit. A sense of restlessness filled the room, urging him to confront the ghosts of his past. He glanced at an old dust-covered box in the corner, its very presence beckoning him. With a sigh, he rose, each step deliberate, as he crossed the room to unearth it from obscurity. The box creaked open, revealing treasures hidden beneath layers of memory. Photographs of smiling faces, crumpled ticket stubs from intimate performances, and letters that spoke of dreams once vibrant. Amid the clutter, one letter caught his eye, folded neatly and yellowed with age. He recognized the familiar scrawl. It was his own handwriting, imbued with youthful enthusiasm. Unfolding it carefully, he inhaled the scent of aged paper, feeling the tether to his former self grow stronger. "Dear George," it began, "remember why you started this journey. Chase your dreams, embrace your music, and let it inspire those who listen." As he read the words, nostalgia washed over him. Each line echoed with the weight of aspirations long forgotten, dreams deferred in the relentless pursuit of fame. George leaned back, the letter trembling in his hands, as a wave of regret washed over him. Had he truly strayed so far from that passionate young artist who once believed anything was achievable? The accolades, the adoration of fans, they felt inconsequential now compared to the vibrant creativity that had once filled his days. As the sun sank lower, casting a warm glow throughout the room, he recognized the ache in his chest, the void that had formed from neglecting the dreams that had fueled his spirit. The familiar pang of loss tightened around him. Tears welled in his eyes, recalling the thrill of creating music that touched hearts and the joy of connecting with his audience. Yet, in the pursuit of success, he had lost sight of himself and the fire that had once burned brightly. The stillness of the evening surrounded him as he fought back the flood of tears. Perhaps it was time to strip away the layers that had built up over years, to face the man who had penned that heartfelt letter. A quiet determination stirred within him, a flicker of hope that whispered it might not be too late. In the gathering dusk, George sat with the echoes of his past, contemplating the journey that lay ahead. Could he reclaim those dreams? As shadows fell across the room, he realized that in those echoes there remained the potential for renewal, a chance to breathe life back into the melodies that had once defined him, and to rediscover the passion that had been eclipsed for far too long. As night settled over the Texas plains, George's thoughts drifted like tumbleweeds caught in the wind. Memories swirled in his mind, vivid and alive, each one a song waiting to be rediscovered. Somewhere deep within him, the flicker of hope ignited a desire to reminisce, to understand how he had journeyed so far from his dreams. He closed his eyes, letting the echoes of his past wash over him like a familiar tune. Suddenly, he wasn't in his living room anymore. The 1970s unfolded before him like a cherished photograph. He was young again, playing to small crowds in dingy bars scattered across Texas. The dim lights barely illuminated his guitar, but the atmosphere buzzed with energy. George could feel the pulse of anticipation in the air, the smell of cheap beer mingling with the scent of his nervous sweat. And there, in those smoky back rooms, he had found his voice. Raw, unpolished, but filled with a passion that consumed him. His bandmates laughed and joked between sets, their camaraderie a comforting embrace. George remembered feeling that anything was possible. They'd throw their heads back and belt the lyrics to songs they'd written together, pouring their hearts out to the few souls gathered to listen. In those moments, it wasn't about fame. It was about the love of music, the shared experience of creation and emotion. He recalled one specific night in a little bar outside San Antonio, the Blue Moon Saloon. The room was packed, and he felt the energy coursing through him as he strummed the opening chords of a new song. The crowd swayed, their faces illuminated by the amber glow of the old jukebox lighting up in the corner. There was something magical about that night. He had poured every ounce of his being into the lyrics, words of longing and hope. It was as if he were channeling every dream, every heartache he'd ever known into that performance. The connection between him and the audience was electric. As the song concluded, raucous applause erupted, filling the room. He could still hear the hoots and hollers, the satisfaction of having moved someone, if only for a moment. That night marked the beginning of a profound journey, a springboard into a world that would soon change forever. The thrill of that applause resonated in his bones, a stark contrast to the quietude he felt now. Yet with success came pressure. As fame rapidly grew, the intimate moments dwindled. The focus shifted from artistry to marketability, and the delightful spontaneity of his early days faded into the echo of corporate expectations. George remembered the first time he stepped onto a grand stage. The bright lights blinded him momentarily, but the roar of the crowd sent shivers down his spine. He had appeared cool and composed, but inside a storm brewed. In the shadows of stardom, George felt his passion dim, overtaken by obligations and the need to uphold an image. The exhilaration that once accompanied creating music dulled into a grind. He thought of the letter he had found earlier and realized he had traded his dreams for demands. Underneath the spotlight, he became a stranger to himself, a performer shackled by the very dream that had once set him free. As the echoes of his past swirled around him, he was jolted back to the present by the sound of laughter filtering through the house. It was Anna-Marie, his assistant and confidant, bringing a plate of freshly baked cookies. Her cheerful spirit had always been a bright light in his life, a reminder of the passion that once fueled him. "Thinking about the old days again?" she teased, her thighs brushing against each other as she moved about the kitchen. George nodded, a bittersweet smile crossing his lips. "It's hard not to, Anna. So many dreams. Hey, those dreams haven't gone anywhere," she said softly, her tone laced with sincerity. "You just lost sight of them for a while. Remember when we talked about how much your music means to young artists? They look up to you." George leaned back, contemplating her words. As much as he had become consumed by his legacy, he had forgotten what it felt like to be that young artist striving for more. He remembered the hopeful faces of the musicians who had opened for him over the years, each one a reflection of his younger self. The realization hit him like a gust of wind, stirring the ashes of his creative flame. Perhaps in helping others, he would find his own path back to passion. Anna-Marie continued, "I know someone who's trying to break into the scene, a young musician named Jake. He's hungry for guidance. You should meet him." "Jake," George mused over the name, the familiarity igniting a glimmer of curiosity. "What's his story?" "Just like you once were," she replied, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "He's got talent, but is struggling to find his voice. I think you'd inspire him. You need to see that fire in him, George. You were once that hopeful kid on stage, and you can still be that person again." George felt a stirring deep within. Anna-Marie's words began to reshape the contours of his thoughts. He had spent years believing he had to uphold a legacy, and in doing so had inadvertently dimmed his own light. What if the path back was through mentoring someone like Jake, reigniting that lost spark of creativity, not only for himself, but for a new generation? The soft chime of a distant melody echoed through his mind, a kind of reconnection to the dreams that had once illuminated his path. In helping a young artist find his voice, perhaps he could rediscover his own along the way. As a new sense of purpose began to brew within him, George glanced at Anna-Marie, a smile hinting at the corners of his lips. "Let's set it up," he said with renewed conviction, the warmth of possibility washing over him. In that moment, surrounded by the echoes of his past, George Strait took the first steps toward reclaiming his dreams. The following week brimmed with anticipation as George prepared to meet Jake. The Texas sun shone brightly, spilling warmth across the landscape as he drove towards the small cafe where they were set to meet. Memories of his own early days flooded his thoughts. The excitement, the struggles, the relentless pursuit of his dreams. He hoped to guide Jake on a similar journey, igniting a flame that might dim over time. As George arrived at the cafe, the familiar aroma of fresh coffee wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. The quaint building buzzed with life, laughter and chatter intermixed with the clinking of cups. George stepped inside, scanning the room until his gaze landed on Jake, a young man in his early 20s, sitting near a window. He had messy brown hair and a guitar resting on his lap, a hint of nervous energy flitting about his demeanor. "Mr. Strait!" Jake exclaimed, his eyes wide with disbelief as George approached. This is incredible." "Just George, please," he replied with an easy smile. "It's good to meet you, Jake. I hear you've got a passion for music." "Yeah, I do," Jake replied, fiddling with the strings of his guitar. "I've been writing songs for a while, but finding my voice has been tough." "That's part of the journey," George said, his voice encouraging. "What do you write about?" Jake looked thoughtful, then strummed a few notes before starting to sing an original piece. The melody was haunting, and the lyrics spoke of longing and hope, capturing a deep emotion that made George stop and listen. The cafe faded away, leaving only the two of them and the music that flowed from Jake's heart. As Jake finished, a silence enveloped them. George clapped, his heart filled with admiration. "That's beautiful, Jake. You've got a real gift." "Thanks," Jake said, his cheeks flushing with pride and nerves. "But it's hard to get people to pay attention." George nodded, reflecting on the countless shows where he had felt invisible despite being on stage. "I remember feeling exactly the same. Finding your audience takes time. What do you feel is holding you back?" Jake leaned closer, vulnerability creasing his features. "I don't know, sometimes I think I'm not good enough, like I'm climbing Mount Everest with no gear." "You are going to face challenges. It's inevitable," George responded thoughtfully. "But remember, every artist has felt that doubt. It's the passion and heart you put into your music that makes you unique." Jake's expression brightened a little, encouraged by George's words. "How did you keep going when it felt impossible?" George chuckled softly, the memories flooding back. "There were nights I almost gave up, but music has a way of being my refuge. Every song I'd write was a piece of myself, a reminder of why I started. The joy of creating is what kept me grounded. I need to remember that." Jake nodded, determination swelling within him. "You're right, I've spent so much time worrying about being perfect that I forgot the joy of just making music." "Focus on sharing your stories," George advised. "Your authenticity is what will resonate with others." Jake leaned back, absorbing the guidance. "I can't believe I'm sitting here with you, learning. It's so surreal." "Believe it," George smiled warmly. The connection they had forged felt deep and genuine. Not just mentorship, but the sharing of a passion that transcended generations. And remember collaboration. Team up with other artists. You might be amazed at what you can create together. "Collaboration," Jake echoed, the spark of inspiration dancing in his eyes. "That's a great idea. I've been so focused on standing out that I forgot the power of connection." As their conversation flowed, filled with laughter and stories of trials in the music industry, George felt rejuvenated. The shared experience was a reminder of the pleasures of music making outside of fame and recognition. Their time together culminated with Jake promising to share his progress with George, excitement brimming from his every word. "I can't wait to show you what I come up with. And I'll be here to listen," George said, feeling warm encouragement spreading through him. "You've got something special inside you. Keep believing in it." As he left the cafe, the Texas sun setting behind him, George felt a rekindled sense of purpose. This meeting with Jake had become more than he had anticipated. It had sparked something vital within himself. The thrill of guiding a young artist towards his dreams reignited George's passion, a reminder of the beauty behind the music that had once defined his life. The echoes of their conversation lingered in his heart, leading him toward the dawn of renewed creativity. After meeting with Jake, George felt a revitalized spark igniting within him. The mornings became filled with anticipation as he picked up his guitar, eager to explore melodies that resonated with the stories buried in his heart. The sun streamed through the Texas landscape, painting the horizon in shades of gold, symbolizing hope and renewal. Each strum of the strings became a release, a cathartic expression of his past and a whisper of what was to come. Days flowed into weeks, and George found himself writing again, blending reflections of his journey with new inspirations drawn from his time spent with Jake. The act of creation that had once nourished his spirit resurfaced, gentle yet powerful. He reminisced about the joy he once found in the craft, the moments when every note he played felt like a lifeline to something greater. One warm evening, George sat on the porch, pen in hand, the air thick with the scent of blooming wildflowers. The world around him was quiet, and the soft strumming of his guitar seemed to draw in the breeze. He felt the warmth of the setting sun on his back as he penned words of resilience, mourning, and the rediscovery of self. Each lyric reflected a journey of healing, buried beneath life's challenges over the years. Just then, Anna-Marie pulled into the driveway, her enthusiasm glowing. "George, you won't believe this. Jake's band is playing at the county fair this weekend, and he wants you to come." George's heart raced at the thought. "I'd love to," he said with a smile, excited to witness Jake's growth firsthand and support the young talent he had grown to admire. When the day of the fair arrived, the energy was palpable. The joyous sounds of laughter filled the air, alongside the sweet aroma of funnel cakes and barbecue wafting through the crowd. As George approached the stage area, he could hear the distant chords of a guitar. His heart swelled, recalling his own early performances with the nervous anticipation that accompanied stepping into the spotlight. Jake appeared on stage, his youthful energy igniting the audience. Seeing him adjust his guitar and catch sight of George brought a radiant smile to his face. As the crowd roared, Jake lifted his guitar, radiating confidence and excitement. The moment he started to play, George watched transfixed. Jake performed a song he had written after their last meeting, sharing heartfelt lyrics about dreams, fears, and the power of connection. Each chord struck echoed with truth, resonating not only with the crowd but within George's own heart. The performance transformed Jake from a hopeful artist into a confident performer, captivating everyone around him. With the final chord ringing, the crowd erupted into applause and a wave of exhilaration washed over Jake. George rushed backstage, exchanging words filled with joy and pride. "You were incredible. You captured the spirit of the song perfectly," George said, beaming at the young artist. "I can't believe how great that felt," Jake replied, his excitement palpable. "Thank you for believing in me, George. You helped me find my voice." George waved away the praise, his heart full. "You did this yourself. Just keep writing and sharing your story. It's where the true magic lies," he urged, feeling a swell of mentorship bloom within him. As they celebrated the success of the day, George realized how much Jake had inspired him to reclaim his love for music. They began collaborating, their creative energies intertwining. Ideas flowed freely, sparking a fresh creativity that infused everything they wrote. It was the return to the collaborative joy that had first ignited George's own career. And alongside Jake, he found himself rediscovering the joy of creation. Seasons moved swiftly, and as winter approached, the duo prepared for their first joint performance at a local venue. The air hovered with excitement. Both George and Jake felt the weight of anticipation as they worked together to fine-tune their songs. On the night of the performance, George felt a rush of nostalgia wash over him as he took the stage with Jake. The atmosphere was electric, filled with friends, family, and fans eager to witness this moment. Standing alongside Jake, George felt the echoes of his past meld with the present. He was no longer just a seasoned artist, but also a mentor, a collaborator, and a friend. As the music poured out, it was not just sound but an exchange of stories, emotions woven together in a tapestry of harmony. Every note played conveyed not only their shared experiences, but the universal threads of hope, love, and resilience. With each song, George transformed, shaking off the remnants of past doubts and stepping into a new era of his identity. When the final note faded and the applause thundered, George looked at Jake, realizing that they had created something beautiful together, a journey of discovery that was as much about the music as it was about connection, healing, and renewed purpose. As they left the stage, filled with joy and gratitude, George felt a deeper understanding of music's power. It had the ability to transcend time and experience, allowing voices to intertwine and resonate across generations. Through mentoring Jake, he had awakened something within himself, a realization that passion never truly dies. It merely waits for the right moment to be reborn. In this newfound companionship, George embraced the path ahead, ready to face whatever darkness life might throw at them. Together, they would keep the flame alive, fueled by creativity, authenticity, and the unbreakable bond they had formed through the shared experience of music. As winter deepened, a new horizon of challenges unveiled itself for George and Jake. The intimacy of their performances transformed into a series of exciting opportunities. The duo gained regional recognition, leading to an invitation to perform at a prestigious music festival. Even as excitement surged, unease began to creep into George's heart, taking its place alongside the newfound passion that had rekindled his spirit. "I just hope we don't mess it up," George confessed one evening, polishing the strings of his guitar while sitting on his porch. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the ground, and he felt vulnerable in the fading light. "Come on, George," Jake said, leaning back against the porch railing, a grin on his face. "You've been in this game forever. You've performed in front of thousands. You'll be just fine. It's going to be electric." I know, George replied, a momentary smile breaking through his worry. But it feels different with you. I want to do right by you. You've already done that, Jake assured him. You're here, creating with me. That's what matters. George took a deep breath. He admired Jake's unwavering confidence and youthful enthusiasm. Still, his thoughts lingered on fears of inadequacies, and for the first time since rekindling his passion for music, doubt scratched at the surface of his composure. As the festival date crept closer, George found himself wrestling with those fears. Early mornings and late nights spent rehearsing turned into moments filled with silent introspection. In the solitude of writing and practicing, George feared he was slipping back into the shadow of self-doubt that had haunted him before meeting Jake. Jake noticed the change in George's demeanor. After practices, he'd observed George staring off into the distance, lost in thought. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked one night as they gathered in the dim light of the studio, guitar strings softly vibrating in the air. I want to make sure this is a moment for you. I don't want my past to overshadow what you're capable of," George admitted, running a hand through his hair, frustration mingling with worry. "George, we're in this together," Jake said. Earnestness lined his features. "I'm not looking for you to carry me. I want to perform with you. You've taught me so much about music and about believing in myself." George looked into Jake's eyes. The sincerity reflected back at him, yet the familiar shadows lingered, lurking just beneath the surface. They practiced harder than ever leading up to the festival. Each session brought George closer to discovering the source of his fears and holding back the rising tide of doubt, but he also felt that he was separating himself from Jake in his struggles. The night of the performance finally arrived. The festival grounds were awash with bright lights, and the excited chatter of the crowd wrapped around them like a comforting blanket. As they set their equipment, George's heart raced, a mix of dread and adrenaline coursing through him. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down. As they took the stage, the audience erupted in applause, and George felt the familiar rush of being recognized and appreciated. But instead of comfort, a heavy silence gripped his chest. The bright lights disoriented him, and the faces in the crowd began to blend into a sea of expectations. Jake nudged George, catching his eye. The look on Jake's face, filled with excitement and anticipation, sparked something within George, a flicker of kindness, reminding him of what truly mattered. They were here to share their music, not to compete with the past. When the first song kicked off, George shook off the encroaching doubts. They poured their hearts into the performance, the energy swirling between them and the audience. As the melodies intertwined, George began to see flashes of clarity in the faces of those listening, a connection being forged with every note played. Halfway through their set, however, George stumbled. His fingers slipped across the strings, and he faltered in the lyrics. He felt the room shift, the faces in the crowd morphing from cheers to a moment of uncertainty. The beat of his heart raced, panic seeped in, calling upon every shadow from his past. Without hesitation, Jake stepped in, leading with a confident strum and vocal harmony that seamlessly filled the gap. "Let's pick it up right here," Jake shouted, a lively grin on his face. In that moment of vulnerability, George saw Jake not just as a mentee, but as a true collaborator, a partner in this adventure. George forced himself to breathe, refocusing on the music. He listened to Jake's voice, his tone steady and strong, a reminder of their shared purpose. As they carried on, George felt the energy between them surge, igniting his spirit. They pushed through the rest of the set, performing as a cohesive unit that sang and played with passion. The crowd cheered them on, lifting the weight from George's shoulders, reminding him of the beauty of sharing this experience. Once the final note rang out, applause thundered through the air, wrapping around them like a warm blanket. The weight of self-doubt began to slip away as shouts of joy filled the outdoor venue. Breathless, they stepped back from the stage, an exuberant mixture of laughter and tears in their eyes. "That was incredible," Jake exclaimed, his voice filled with uncontainable excitement. As they hugged each other on stage, the joy radiating from both of them. George's heart swelled with gratitude. "You saved me out there. I was fading," he admitted, overcome with emotion. "You're not alone in this." "We're a team," Jake replied, and the sincerity in his voice relieved the last remnants of doubt that had haunted George. As they stepped off the stage, George realized that the journey had transformed him. The fear and insecurity he struggled with had been met with camaraderie, trust, and support. They both faced challenges, but discovered resilience within each other. That night, under the stars, George and Jake reflected on their performance, laughter dancing between them. It was not just a moment of triumph, it was a testament to the healing power of music and the strength found in human connection. George looked at Jake, a sense of happiness bubbling within him. "Thank you for reminding me what it truly means to create music." Jake smiled. "And thank you for letting me share this journey with you. I couldn't ask for a better partner." With that, they paved the way for the next chapter of their story, fortified and ready to take on whatever life had in store, together. As the weeks unfolded following their triumphant performance, George and Jake enjoyed a newfound rhythm in their collaboration. Their shared experiences at the festival illuminated paths in music that they had previously overlooked. The joyous energy of their performance galvanized their friendship and creativity, and they spent long evenings writing in the warmth of George's home, songs brimming with life and honesty. One late afternoon, as the sun cast golden rays through the dusty windows, George sat at the kitchen table, scribbling notes on a legal pad as pages of ideas scattered across the wood. "What do you think of this idea?" he asked, glancing up tentatively at Jake, who leaned against the doorframe, guitar in hand, ready to strum along. "I love it," Jake exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious. "But maybe tweak the chorus just a bit. It needs that punch you're so good at." George grinned, appreciating Jake's energy. "I had the same thought. Let's try it out." As they worked together, dynamic harmonies came to life, weaving tales of struggles and victories into their verses. But beneath George's excitement, a more profound realization began to tug at him. Each song they crafted reflected not only their collaboration, but also the deepest corners of his soul. The shadows of loneliness and regret were being uncovered and reframed through the laughter and creativity spilling from their shared experience. One evening, after yet another fruitful writing session, George decided to take a moment to open up. "You know, Jake, I've been thinking," he began, his fingers resting on the edge of the table, the hesitance evident in his voice. "Every song we've made has been so uplifting, but some days I still find myself battling with the ghost of my past. All those years feeling lost. Sometimes it feels like I'm merely a caretaker of old memories." Jake set down his guitar, crossing over to sit beside him. "It's okay to reflect on that, George. Your past shaped you into who you are now. It's not about erasing those memories, but honoring them in a new light." George took a deep breath, gratitude breaking through his concerns. "Yeah, you're right. I just don't want to get caught up in that darkness again. I don't want to lose the joy that I feel creating now," he admitted, searching Jake's eyes for understanding. "That's part of being an artist, isn't it? We find beauty in the struggle." "Here's the thing. Those moments of vulnerability can create some of the most genuine music," Jake replied encouragingly. "We can write about that, about the journey of battling with the past and emerging stronger. Let's channel it together." Inspired, George embraced the idea, allowing himself to explore the depths of his experiences. They worked late into the night, pouring their collective histories into lyrics that resonated with authenticity and honesty. The deeper they dug, the more liberated George felt, as if lifting the burdens he had carried for so long through their music. Days turned into weeks, and their collaboration evolved. They explored various venues across Texas, performing their new material while continuing to build a loyal fan base. George felt revitalized by the connection through music, more confident in his abilities than ever before. One evening, they found themselves backstage at a small-town venue, the excitement buzzing in the air. George paced nervously as they prepared for another show, memories of past performances filling his mind. It was to be a night celebrating their growing friendship and a powerful chapter of their lives. Jake noticed George's unease and stepped up beside him. "You're good. We've got this," Jake encouraged, patting George on the shoulder. "Just thinking about everything we've built together and how far we've come," George responded, taking a deep breath as he felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Suddenly, a faint, traditional country melody drifted backstage from the venue. "Enjoying the tunes?" Jake asked playfully, leaning back casually. "Yes, wouldn't want to miss that," George replied with a chuckle, surprised by how much he cherished moments like these, filled with camaraderie, laughter, and good music. It was a celebration of their journey, a blend of past and present coming together in harmony. As they stepped onto the stage that night, their hearts echoed with each beat. Facing the spotlight, George once again felt the familiar swell of emotions. excitement, nervousness, and a hint of vulnerability. Yet this time he wasn't standing alone. Jake was right beside him. "I just want to throw our hearts into this," George said, looking at Jake, who nodded in solidarity. They launched into their set, the audience swaying in unison with the rhythm. Every note sent waves of energy through the room, and George saw familiar faces singing along, their eyes sparkling with joy. Their connection with the crowd sparked something inside him. It wasn't just about the music. It was about the bond created in shared experiences, the stories woven through melodies that spoke to the soul. As the night progressed, George felt himself transforming once more. The past no longer held chains over him. It was now intertwined with a future bursting with possibility. He no longer felt like a caretaker of memories. Instead, he embraced the raw, honest stories they had crafted together, realizing that healing often unraveled through vulnerability and connection. With each song, he continued to shed layers of his past and ignite the spirit of renewal with Jake beside him. As they finished their set, the sound of applause filled their ears, wrapping around them in a sea of warmth and appreciation. Backstage, adrenaline and joy mingled in the air. George turned to Jake. "Thank you really for everything. You've helped me turn my past into something meaningful." Jake grinned, passion lighting up his eyes. "And you've shown me what it means to share my music. It's truly a journey we're both on together." As they left the venue that night, George took in the stars twinkling overhead, a reminder of the enduring nature of dreams and the beautiful connections they built through music. Side by side, he and Jake stood united in their creative pursuit, ready for whatever adventures awaited them next, grounded in the wisdom of their past, yet looking forward to the bright horizon that lay ahead. With the arrival of spring, George and Jake's musical partnership flourished. The days grew longer, infused with inspiration and excitement. They filled the air with melodies, penning songs that captured their collective experiences, which soon began drawing attention from music enthusiasts and industry professionals alike. One sunny afternoon, while relaxing under the shade of an ancient oak tree by George's home, Jake leapt up with enthusiasm. "You won't believe this. A record label wants to meet with us next week." "That's fantastic, Jake." George felt a thrill of excitement rush through him. Yet a tinge of apprehension rolled through his gut. "What do we do to get ready?" "Just be ourselves," Jake encouraged. "Let's show them what our music represents." George nodded, reassured by Jake's optimism. They spent the days leading up to the meeting rehearsing their songs, pouring their souls into every chord and lyric, realizing they were crafting not just music, but a reflection of their journeys. On the day of the meeting, they arrived at the label's office, nerves fluttering in their chests. After sharing their original songs, the room fell silent for a moment before applause erupted, filling the air with validation. George felt hopeful but guarded, as the label's executives offered praise alongside constructive feedback, challenging them to refine their vision. Walking out, a mix of optimism and reflection stirred within George. "I think they see potential in us," Jake noted, glancing at George beside him. "But it's vital we remain true to who we are," George replied, determination rising within him. "I don't want this to change what we've built together." Returning to their home studios, they instinctively struck a balance between pursuing opportunities while cherishing their authentic artistry. Their collaboration continued to yield songs that resonated with fans across local charts, touching hearts and encouraging healing through shared stories. "Your music truly connects with us," an audience member shared after one performance, which thrilled George. Their work became more than just nationwide recognition. It spurred connections, inspired conversations, and offered solace to those grappling with their struggles. As spring melted into summer, George and Jake found themselves headlining a local outdoor festival. Under a canvas of blue skies, they stood on stage looking out at the thrumming crowd, excitement sending shivers down George's spine. "Tonight we celebrate our journeys," George called into the mic, sharing the powerful essence of their songs, stories of resilience woven through struggle. As they played, the synergy of their music enveloped them, uniting the audience in a shared experience. Finishing their set to thunderous applause, they sank into the realization that they had created something meaningful together. That evening, standing outside under glittering stars, George turned to Jake, a reflective glint in his eye. "Thank you for being part of this journey. We've created something beautiful. It feels bigger than just us." Jake beamed, his enthusiasm unwavering. Exactly. Every song is a testament to our growth. We've built more than music. We've forged connections through it. That night solidified for George the profound power of music. They weren't just artists anymore. They were storytellers, weaving dreams and realities that inspired others. Together, they embraced the horizon ahead, ready to navigate whatever life unfolds, leaving a legacy of hope and authenticity behind them. With unwavering purpose and belief in their craft, George and Jake stood united, ready to face the future as partners in not just music, but in life itself.